What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today when I talk to you about SoFi, I want to go over some of the data points, break it down what moved it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi had a pretty kick-ass day, went up 1.02%, 28.97 the low, 30.30 the high. So a new 52-week and all-time high was created. And when it comes down to SoFi, first thing during the pre-market, you kind of knew that there was going to be a little bit of a dip. And for those of you that tuned into my pre-market video, I said that once it does dip, it's going to get bought up very, very fast. What really prompted this dip, though, was a lot of chatter associated to the H-1 visa, so updates for that. And then as well, oddly, a lot of chatter about government shutdowns. But as soon as the market started to really skyrocket, all that chatter just went away. As far as volume today, we did have 63.6 million shares being traded, 66.5 is the average. No news from SoFi, no SEC filings or anything like that. The big thing for today was going to be the immense amount of Fed speakers, but turns out it was like a nothing burger. Nothing really of substance was stated. The worst of it was Hammock just saying that if the Feds cut too quickly, you could start to see a overheat. And of course, I think they're linking that to inflation. But still, the market didn't seem to care whatsoever. And I think the reason why the market didn't care is because a lot of institutions have been coming out with articles and kind of stances like this. So the Fed cut could prolong US equity rally. So this is stated by Goldman Sachs, JPM, UBS, all came out with very similar articles. So yeah, in general, things are going to be really moving higher, a lot of optimism. And this is something as well I did mention over my weekend video, how you could start to see a broader market rotation. But a lot of these articles, when I see them, it kind of makes me laugh, because if you see Goldman Sachs saying that, hey, we could see a nice continued push higher, you know they just bought. And this is why a lot of these articles are coming out now and not last week, because last week they were busy buying. They were buying everything. And now they come out and say, hey, yeah, you know what? Everything's going to go higher from here. It's just funny manipulation. But nonetheless, when it comes down to shorts, interestingly enough, they did increase 2.2 million shares. $1 million question is, why? Were they trying to really slow SoFi's momentum for it to not really get above that $30 mark, or is this a kind of a trend change? So this was kind of interesting stuff. And like I've stated in the past, I look at a lot of different stocks throughout the day. This seems to be the only stock that somehow shorts did increase. Everything else, shorts were pretty much either flat or returning. So again, that's something to keep in mind. Looking at the options, we did have 89 million in calls, 19 million in puts. 45% of all the options being done were bullish in nature. So despite it hitting all-time highs, you still see a certain level of optimism still on the table. Coming from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $32, $33 range. And this is something that I did show in 2 videos ago. The Elliott Wave Technicals is projecting for it to hit that kind of high 33s. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub roughly 28.50. So definitely a lot more upside is anticipated. A lot of big transactions that did occur on the secondary market as well as dark pool. So most of the volume that was done today was actual institutions buying SoFi. Keep in mind, we're about a week and a half away from the end of Q3. So some of this could be correlated with rebalancing. But still, it is what it is. I think generally we know that SoFi is getting a lot of attention from just institutions. There was a couple of bullish articles that did come out associated to SoFi, just kind of talking about how the rate cut could really help just the underlying business, loans, but I think we kind of generally knew that. No new analyst ratings on a side note, so still $31. Most likely, like I've said, I think analysts are just very much sheep, so they'll see SoFi hitting $30, $31 in that general area, and they'll want to be like, hey, I don't want my $21 rating anymore. Let's bump it up. So you might see some new ratings coming out randomly, despite there being no real operational updates. With it closing at 29.81, it is between this R3 and this R2. So 27.96 is going to be a strong support. I don't see that being touched at least for this week unless something crazy from GDP or PCE comes out. 30.25, that's going to be the next strong target / resistance. It did break briefly above that, but going into tomorrow, that's going to be that target to ideally close above. Aside from all that fun stuff, quickly popping over here, like I said, the algos were rather timid today, didn't really do all that much. No real negatives to bring up on the actual chart itself, other than the fact that it's very, very overbought. But 90%, 95% of the broader market is overbought. So the first sign of weakness, you could see some consolidation. So somewhat just keep that in mind. Looking at the market position, comparing it today versus Friday, you do see some more willing sellers at roughly around that 29.84 to looks like that 30 for the most part, where SoFi did land. So at the end of the day, that's going to be something just to an obstacle to get over tomorrow, most likely, but it shouldn't be that difficult in my opinion. And then, like I said, no real articles really coming out associated to SoFi. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Did you expect this nice push higher? Were you expecting more consolidation or any consolidation? Or do you what's your overall viewpoint? One thing I've noticed on social media is a lot of the, I guess, influencers that didn't really catch the rally, and I think a lot of them have turned bearish. So oddly enough, I've seen a lot of people be very bearish for no reason. So I think some people are trying to turn the broader sentiment negative and maybe prompt a pullback. I don't really know. But again, I think generally I do agree with a lot of the bigger institutions that it's now a good time to potentially buy, and that there might be a broader rotation that does start to occur that might last over the next probably 6 months to a year. So if we do get, for instance, another cut in October, so right now the consensus is a 89.8% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the October 29th meeting, and then also a 73.6% likelihood of a following 25 basis point cut for the December 10th. Once we get that, then you'll see a very nice continued push higher. So yeah, let me know your general thoughts on SoFi. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What's your viewpoint on shorts increasing? Do you think this is going to be a trend change or just a kind of a one-off? And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. So I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, and all have been absolutely on point. Even today, I know a lot of people were very, very optimistic about open. I did say that it was going to trend down to roughly around that $8.40 range. And lo and behold, during the trading day, that's exactly where it did land. After hours, it seems to be going down a little bit, but definitely worthwhile to pop over to the Patreon. No BS type of stuff. So worthwhile to take a look at that. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.